Thank you, and good morning. What I would love to do is, I want to just get a feel for who's here. So members of the committee, will you just raise your hand? And then everybody else is just interested local citizens, I'm assuming. Okay. So I'm Darren Collier, I'm with the Worthy Companies. We're the zoning applicant on a redevelopment proposal for the super target, just to the south and east of us. We've had lots of engagement with local stakeholders, I'll say. I viewed this morning as a unique and slightly different opportunity because in looking at the committee makeup, it struck me that there were a lot of business professionals on it. And I don't often get asked what I think is a very obvious question to ask a businessman, which is, why the heck are you doing this? What's the plan? Why invest $70 million in that location? So I want to say to everyone who's not on the committee, the presentation's a little different. These are not the only issues that matter in a zoning. And I'll continue to have meetings, including Planning Commission next week and Mayor and City Council next month, in which zoning matters are discussed. But this morning I just thought it would be interesting to share with you kind of how we view this and why we're here and why we're pursuing this. And with that, I'll start. By the way, I'm a part of a development team, which includes the existing owner, who will be reimagining, reconfiguring the out parcel space. We'll get into this in a second, but I just want to make sure everyone understands who's who. And then we have a townhome developer, Pulte Group here in Smith, is doing the townhome. So it's actually a 3-developer group. And with that, I'll sort of flip over. And it includes some really important design professionals also, who I think have just done admirable work on this. One is Rural Joy, which is a Cobb County architecture firm, and then another one, Ironwood Design Group, is going to involve our landscape, hardscape design. They're actually a local Roswell group, and some of you may know Eric Jorgens. Obviously, that's the site. I just wanted to begin with this, just kind of get us reoriented. This is the best aerial I could find, but it's not necessarily a recent aerial. You can see kind of right here, that's actually the town of Chastain. That exists. I think it's sold out. I met with them. They're a great, energetic group. I've already had one meeting with them. I'll probably have another meeting with them soon. They obviously have the generalized zoning questions, generalized development questions, but they have a lot of questions that are very unique and specific to them, and we're working with them. Again, another picture. So I wanted to start with this, and you're probably wondering, like, why are we starting with the negative? And the answer is that amazingly, this question, this story, has co-opted almost all of my meetings. The first, I don't know how many minutes we spend listening to thoughts about why this super target closed and what happened and what the implications are. And honestly, you can't believe how many different perspectives, and that's a charitable word, I would say, how many very firm opinions there are about why that happened. And I think it's really, it's almost become, well, two things. It's sort of a Rorschach test. I learn a lot about who I'm talking to by hearing what they think about what happened here. But it's also a little bit of people using the event to express broader agenda or position points. Now, I was fortunate, Trent told me about this committee's last presentation by Kyle Valenti, and I actually jumped on the Facebook stream, and I was really impressed with him, really impressed. And I generally agree with his outlook on why Super Target didn't make it there, what are the larger issues, and I'm not going to restate those other than to say he's a pretty bright guy, looked like he had given it a lot of thought. A lot of his conclusions are consistent with some of the research work I've seen from Roswell Inc. also. I encourage you to look at it and consider it and think about what Kyle has said and what others have said, and I'm sure Steve will make all that information available to you. The one thing he didn't really touch on, which I wanted to quickly touch on, is you know, he said, look, this was impacted in part. I think his main thesis was very limited service area, surprisingly limited service area when you just kind of look at it on an aerial. But North Point Mall really kind of did a good job of creating a retail vacuum and pulling a lot of shoppers up to that part of the world. And then he just briefly noted, and North Point is having its own struggles right now. That understates the problem with retail right now in the built environment. If you're a retailer, winter is here. And the Night King has a name. It's Jeff Bezos. And it's going to continue. I was talking earlier with, I don't remember who I said it to. Even when you get good news in the retail space now, if you spend 2 seconds thinking about it, it's bad news for the retail built environment. So the latest good news in the retail space that I saw is Walmart's earnings are actually going up. They're actually doing better for the first time in quite a while. But it's almost 100% attributable to their internet presence and their single-day delivery. Okay, now think about all those big boxes all over the Southeast in particular, and what happens to them as Walmart tries to itself adjust to winter being here in the retail space. So for me, I actually don't have to reach a firm conclusion on this, and particularly for the purpose of why I'm here. The situation kind of reminds me of a Latin phrase I learned in law school, res ipsa loquitur. And does anybody, any lawyers, anybody know what that means? Res ipsa loquitur means the following: it just speaks for itself. Okay? So for all the business people in the room, you know, at the end of the day, Super Target owned that site. They built that building. They fully intended to serve this community. They wanted to make a profit, as they should, because they provide a valuable service to the people who use it, including my family. They closed it. I mean, they closed it, and it has sat there for 2.5 years. There may be 18,000 different facets to the answer, but the thing speaks for itself. Something is unique about that location that should inform the way community, planning staff, elected officials, and the development community views it. I wanted to take, when I started looking at this site and we became aware of it, I wanted to give y'all my common sense view of the site and what's possible. This is not, I am not Kyle Valenti. I've been in the real estate industry a very long time, unfortunately. These are just my common sense views of what's possible in that location. Let's begin with retail. Look, it's a limited service area. No kidding, the location is at a competitive disadvantage in an already well-served North Fulton market, and it's an evolving product type. Nobody knows how they're going to use the built environment going forward. I thought this shopping center is a great example of where things are going, which is it's almost all restaurant and almost all neighborhood service. I think I saw one retailer, Tim, I think the cycling company. Yeah, so that tells you, like, and that's the thing, you know, this was built in probably 85, 84. I've lived in this community since 81. So that's not a long time for it to just completely transform. Office. Everybody wants office, but the truth is that the same dynamics that apply to retail also apply to office. And when I'm saying office, I'm not thinking, nobody in here was thinking there was going to be a high-rise there. It may be that you were thinking that maybe Northlands or, like, you know, what's in sale right now, you know, maybe that would come in. But the truth is a lot of the same dynamics are at work there. It's a limited service area. It has very unique commuter dynamics, obviously. But I think at the end of the day, for a business person, right, I'm not trying to solve it. I'm just trying to, like, make a decision, understand as best I can. Projects with similar location dynamics just do not exist in the Metroplex. That site's 3.5 miles from Georgia 400. The entire length of Mansell Road is 1.5 miles. That office is in the middle of that. So the closest I could get to was there was one office building, I think it's called Brookwood, up on Old Milton. It's built in, again, late or mid-90s or so. It's a mile and a half. And it's right there at Old Minden. So it's just unique dynamics. This is another one where you might say the proof's probably in the pudding. You just don't see office development in locations with similar dynamics as that one. Industrial flex, probably don't have to speak at all about that. Poor transportation infrastructure for industrial. The location's inconsistent with the existing and desired uses. Parks and recreation, I mean, we've got an unbelievable 45-acre park just right on the doorstep of it. And at the end of the day, limited municipal and civic funds are available to do projects that are in fact impactful. I'm for impactful projects. I am the direct beneficiary of the boardwalk that's on the river. Unbelievable. Whoever envisioned that and figured out how to capitalize it and how to execute it, thank you. That was fantastic. Residential, it is a strong single-family multifamily market. Portions of the stock are plus 30 years old, some of it more than that. Some of the apartment stock is from the early 70s, in fact. Most all of it is car-centric planning and context. In other words, it's the end of cul-de-sacs. Horseshoe Bend's a great example, and it's probably appropriate for that and what their community wants to be. But the truth is most, I'll talk to this obviously more about it shortly, but most people are making housing choices that are no longer at the end of the long cul-de-sac. People want to find some level of connection. They used to find it in the retail context, but now finding it in a different context. Neighborhood nexus is just a catch-all for what I just explained is in here, which is local restaurants, local services, local uses, local commercial, local office users, again, service professionals. So that's just like my overview of the site, and there's not a lot of great angles just looking at it. In terms of, what would you do why would you take a risk with your capital? And so, that's actually my next slide. So the project that we envision is a $70 million investment. I know I've got some real estate professionals on the committee. You get it. That's a lot of money. I am personally exposed for the repayment of a significant portion of it. There will be institutional capital brought to this. I have a case study later in the presentation I'll show you. I have the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System. That's my partner. So these are big, sophisticated projects that obviously gets everyone's attention when you try to envision them and capitalize them. So what are we seeing? Given what I just said, what are we seeing that might make sense here? So the first piece of that is to us, the location is attractive to our target consumer. And I have more slides on this. So I cater to stabilized millennials and downsizing baby boomers. I've finished 5 lease-ups in the Atlanta Metroplex in the last 24 months. And my average, I'll ask this question. Some of you I see people from Martin's Landing and some of the other places who probably already have a punchline to this. But what do you think the average age of the person who lives in one of our communities is? Happy to hear It's 38-40. It's kind of like 38.7 years old. And it's interesting because as much as 16% of the entire population, so take a 300-unit property, that's a lot of folks, as much as 16% of the entire population over the age of 55. So consider what it takes for a 55-year-old to move into, say, a 1,200 square foot apartment. They have got to get rid of the debris of their life. They probably have to get reacquainted with their significant other, because you're now going to be living in a space that you're probably not used to doing, and you're having to make a choice to leave the single-family housing realm. But we're getting it. I have a slide that's coming up. So that's one thing that's attractive. This is a proven, attractive market for those two. It is not a great market for 26-year-olds fresh out of accounting school, fresh out of law school, fresh out of whatever graduate school. I don't even bother trying to release the people who just have an undergraduate degree anymore. That's too hard, unless the parents can have, which a lot of them are. So it's not necessarily an attractive market for that age group. Go forward 10 years, it becomes a lot more attractive. And by the way, I think most of the people here made a decision to move here somewhere around that time. It is supply constraints in terms of what I view as competitive housing, and there is demonstrated pent-up demand dynamics here. I know that people in this area right now want to live in the type of housing we've been building. I have a very good friend, Stephen DeFrancis, that bought Park 83 and refurbished it. It's an interesting dynamic because I had a kind of a tangential relationship with that property at one point in time, so I kind of knew it and understand it. He has invested a lot of money in the interiors. He doesn't even come close to the new product, and he has completely changed the rental demographics, the returns, and the presence of that property. He is scared to death that we're going to build something and compete with him because he knows that his folks have the capacity to pay even more, and they'll make a decision to actually move up. By the way, I don't want to I have lots of information for you on how the nation's moving to rental housing versus single family and some of those things. But if you just think about how many of us now lease our car versus own it. My dad would have never considered leasing a car. To him, that was an insult. That's not the world anymore. People don't own things, people want to experience things. So the move up phenomenon is even more prevalent. So next one. It is, from my perspective, a unique chance to manufacture a housing experience that is sought today. It can be pedestrian rich with valuable entertainment opportunities within walking distance. That is unique. Take this right here. I would love to be able to build housing right here. It's not going to happen. There's no land, there's no opportunity. It is a unique opportunity in that sense to create the housing experience that people want today. There is my final comment, there is site urgency coupled with a business intention that is consistent with the development guidance from this jurisdiction. I think that's important. Why do I think that's important? I talk to a lot of folks who have a passing interest in selling land, redeveloping shopping centers, etc. But all the real estate professionals in here know this. You leverage your shopping center. You have 20-year leases, 15-year leases. It is often hard to untangle these shopping centers from the very intricate capitalization and legal constraints that keep them the way they are, which is not what the community wants. You don't want to see the tenant base going down. You have to keep signing new tenants or you struggle against your debt. So this site is very unique in that sense. There is an urgency to get something done on it. I think not just from the owner, but also from the community. Let me give a couple of comments on my big picture business model, and then we'll get as fast as we can into the actual site. So I target millennials. I actually target millennials more in the 30 to 40 age range, but I think most people in this room, many of you look like boomers, so you know this is your children, by the way. They are the nation's largest generational cohort after the baby boomers. They will absolutely do exactly what the baby boomers do. They are going to transform this economy. Obviously, the internet is transforming our economy. The on-demand economy is transforming the way we interact with goods and services. But behind all that is our children who have grown up with these expectations. I laugh. My children, I live just right by the river, just over the Cobb County line. My kids have always grown up with their own room. It's not like it's a big house, a 1988 house. But they've always had their own room. I don't even know how they'll get married and live with someone in the same room. They don't know how to do that. So there's all kinds of things like that. But look, millennials are showing already that in addition to being historically the age group that rents the longest, they have now extended that rental period by lifestyle and life cycle changes that are happening. Again, unless you have kids going through, you can't appreciate it. We've got delayed marriages and family formation, heavy student debt, and an increased desire for mobility. In many cases, this should continue to chase jobs. Where's my other? got out of order. The other demographic that I chase is downsizing baby boomers. Everyone in here is probably still in a house, but I will tell you, if you haven't already considered putting a parent in an apartment or consider you yourself moving into an apartment, you will soon. And the numbers just sort of tell us that. Over half of the net increase in rental household formations it's now obviously, I can update that, over the last 10 to 12 years has been in this segment. We've seen it in our own properties. They're moving towards rental housing for convenience and flexibility, and also because the quality is completely different. The proposition is completely different. This is not the apartment that I carried my wife over the threshold when we just got out of the underground. This is a different game. I have some pictures to show you on that. One obvious question, if I was pausing and taking questions, one obvious question is like, how do you target two absolutely dissimilar demographics? Which is, I will tell you, I love this picture. It is at times interesting, but the truth is they both come back to the same thing. Baby boomers, it's obvious. They'll downsize so long as it's not a downgrade, right? I mean, that's basically it. You still have to execute in terms of design, utility, finish. It needs to feel like what they're leaving behind. Millennials, on the other end of that spectrum, they grew up in that. They're acting like they're anti-label, anti-brand, but the truth is that's just the way they express luxury. They're as aspirational as we were when we were their age. Again, they're looking for design, utility, finish. I thank Apple for this. Apple has gotten everyone focused on utility, efficiency in design, space utilization, etc. So that's my consumer. That's who I chase. And that was at the top of my list. I think this area is very attractive to those two demographics. In fact, I think a lot of the folks, my consumers, are already either either in houses or in existing apartments. The other piece of this, a lot of what I said, we had site urgency coupled with design intent that's aligned with the design guidance. Now, this is really important to a business person in the following sense. To get to this point, we just received staff reports. So to get to the point where I can get a staff report, I have spent almost $200,000 on a speculative proposition. You don't want to do that a lot in a year. You don't want to do that a lot in a career. You start to have to answer to people who invest with you. So when I look at sites, I want to make sure that my vision, my business vision, which I've already kind of articulated, is aligned with the published development guidance from the city. Now I know that I have to engage with individuals through the zoning process. That is the point of the zoning process. But your tax dollars have hired, in this case, I already have the report so I can say this, I'm not sucking up to that. This jurisdiction is using your tax dollars in part to pay for probably the finest planning staff in the Metroplex. So they know what they're doing. You guys went through a comprehensive civic engagement process to reach your Uniform Development Code, and your Uniform Development Code is dovetailed with your future land use map, which is itself an incredibly difficult document to produce. It's actually state required. So there is good, thoughtful development guidance out there. And as a developer, I don't turn my nose up at it. And I will tell you just as a sidebar, because it keeps coming up in some of the chats that I see on the internet, I don't turn my nose up at the Uniform Development Code either. There are developers who hate it. There are citizens who hate it. I'm right in the middle. Unless everybody wants to get in the weeds on every specific site, every specific detail, you need a Uniform Development Code, and Roswell's is very fine. So what do we have here? This site is zoned for this use. This is a technical statement. This actually is not a rezoning. This site is already zoned for my vision. What it requires is, because I have rental housing, I have to get a special administrative permit. Fair is fair, right? I got it. You don't have to drive too far around to see apartments built in the 70s and 80s that are challenging to local citizenry. I I got it, fair's fair. I'll show up every time and ask for a special administrative permit. The other thing that we're doing is that the existing zoning, because it was in 2007, it really had a fresh bunch of conditions that were associated with the power center. Those conditions have to get eliminated, and this project has to be formally brought under the UDC without those conditions. So let me say it again. This project is zoned for this use. I have not asked for a single variance. I have said to the city, I got it. I'm going to live within your Uniform Development Code. And we're evaluating and removing conditions that are no longer appropriate. And I'm going through the zoning process to engage with the local citizenry, primarily on the question of the apartments. So let's look at what it's zoned. It's zoned CC, which is commercial corridor. Makes sense. We're on a commercial corridor. I encourage you to look at it. If you're really interested, here's what I pulled out. I won't read the whole thing, but I just sort of say that it is designed for what I call medium intensity. If I was doing it, I would have gone up in intensity. I'm going to show in Brookhaven where I think the correct intensity was put together. And it's designed to see a mix of commercial, service, retail, and multifamily uses which are desired. And all of that is, remember I said this is nicely dovetailed? All of that is designed to implement a long-range plan. So, and then you got to, now you got to flip out and go find another document. So I went and found the other document, and that is the future use plan. We're in the character area for the Holcomb Bridge Road, State Road 140 corridor. I'm just going to read these guys. So that character area, create incentives for infill development to retrofit strip-type commercial development and linear buildings. Okay. Quality, low-scale, low-rise, mixed-use, which includes office, commercial, recreational, and housing. Got it. Residential, including townhomes, attached housing, and single-family housing. Here I am. Once again, I get singled out. Multifamily housing only when integrated with a mix of residential housing types. Actually, that's great housing policy. I don't disagree with that at all. That's great housing policy. And in fact, I take it one step further, and you'll see this in the site plan. The housing should integrate and have connective tissue with existing housing around it, not just within its own zoning classification, or zoning request, I should say. Aesthetic improvements to the street tree, sidewalk lighting. Developments may incorporate design for community gathering spaces. So that's the guidance. That's what I'm working with that. I couldn't be more lucky, and you guys couldn't be more blessed. The UDC actually has a separate section on how to deal with these existing power center strip centers. They give you a case study, and they illustrate the things you should, the concepts you should look at as you're developing them. So, I won't pick up on all of these, but residential building types along edges to adjoin residential neighborhoods, teaser parking, building ground facades, the uses they look for, townhouses, multifamily, mixed use, parking structures, wrap, dividing larger buildings into modules to create a sense of scale, transpirative building elements. This actually already exists, as many of y'all know. The prior development was actually built under that same concept, so it has that on Holcomb Bridge. So here's the site plan that we're doing, and I apologize for the green. It looks really good on my computer screen. When I converted it to PDF, I got back color. That is not the green we're using. And by the way, it's not a helpful document to look at. It's a large project. It's, the whole thing is plus 30 acres, right at about 30 acres. So that's difficult to look at. The next one is even worse, but I think it'll be helpful for us to look at. Okay, so here are my notes. Let's try to work through what we've got. Let me begin with, so here's the existing town's the townhood project. It's hard to say, townhood project. Yellow is as-built condition. Those are the retail modules that exist out there. Brown is future built. So a couple of things we wanted to do. We wanted to close this curb cut. I didn't mention it, but in the design guidance, they really want to see curb cuts on Holcomb Bridge closed. There's debate on whether or not that's great transportation planning. But you know, we accepted it, and we looked for a way to close this. I do think it does help the flow, at least past here. You don't get people trying to pull out. So closing a curb cut. We're doing our best to emphasize and maximize this non-signalized curb cut. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. One, we want to be empathetic to this group who continues to use this roundabout, and I'll come to that. It's right-hand out only. Our own traffic studies have shown that 75 to 80% of this, right? It's all the way 200 to 400. So there is a significant amount that turns east and south, but at peak times, it goes to 400. There's no denying that, and we understand that. By the way, I just want to say this real quick about traffic, and it probably will come up more in the questions. I'm not a traffic engineer. One thing, when we were looking at this originally, we were doing this hand in hand with our owner, is we voluntarily submitted this project to the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority and the Atlanta Regional Commission to consider it from a traffic perspective under what they call the Development of Regional Impact analysis. This project, when it was conceived as a retail center, went through that. We asked them to look at it, and looked at our request, and they emailed back essentially, this intensive is way less intensive than what we already approved. The traffic improvements have only gotten better since we studied it. We don't need the DRI approval. So we went ahead, we went forward with our own traffic report, turned it into staff. They've been working with it, with them, so we have numbers, and I kind of understand the traffic patterns, in addition to kind of just sitting out there and watching it. So we want to emphasize this, and we're doing that two ways. We've got two streets so we can get people moving through, and we've created this centralized spot, which is an open green space with what we're envisioning as a pop-up activity center. I'll spend a little more time on this as we get deeper into the presentation. Our main goal is to do something that we found to be hugely successful from a business perspective, which is to focus on streetscape and pedestrian environment as the amenity. Using your buildings to frame your spaces, creating scalable situations where people feel secure so that you can get this group. This group now uses this vacant parking lot to walk their dogs. They're very concerned about continuing to be able to use this property to walk. We've shown them this, and they're very excited, particularly about being able to use this. And we're also exploring ways to share amenities with them. This is a non-amenitized community. It hurts the value of their homes. We think there are valid business reasons to share amenities with them. I'll give you a quick just aside. Every day is a business transaction for me, renting apartments. To have this great young crowd at my pool only increases the likelihood that I continue to get great young crowds wanting to lease with me. So you can see the street grid pattern, properly framed and scaled pedestrian environment. Connect to the single-family homes. We're working carefully with them around this roundabout here. We do have an improved and enhanced public roundabout. The city had some concerns about this. This community had some concerns about it. I think we have, as reflected in the staff report, I think we've reached a consensus. This is a public thoroughfare, and we've reached a consensus on what we will do to a public thoroughfare to improve this. We have additional professional service space opportunities in these buildings. We have additional restaurant opportunities in several. And I think that this housing will unlock that retail. Let me go back. I should have jumped over this. I'm not avoiding this. So overall, 350 apartment communities, 73 townhomes, 75,000 square feet of retail.
Can you restate that, please?
Yep, 350 350 multifamily flats, flat units, 75,000 square feet of commercial space. And as I said, it's a mix. It's already a mix out there. And 73 townhomes. So in addition to those opportunities, those development opportunities, and I have a feeling we'll come back to this, I'll put this back up. There has been some discussion about greenways, trails in this part of the world. And there have been prior studies done on this. One of your local citizens made me aware of kind of an ad hoc trail system that currently runs sort of from here all the way through here to Centavista. And I got about as far as right there before my fancy dress shoes. I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I have said to staff, I have said to citizens who are interested in this, we are absolutely open and will be helpful to whatever effort wants to be made to take advantage of this natural greenway that exists because of the topography in that creek. You can see it's already a dense setting, so you don't have a lot of these opportunities, but this is a pretty cool setting. And again, from a business perspective, that's a great amenity. It's something I can't build, at least within the confines of that site. So I just throw that out as opportunity. It's all off our site except for the trailhead, which would be probably right there. And you go back, and we've got almost an ideal setting where we can reconfigure this and sort of have a situation where we can continue to walk down this. And I'm going to show you pictures of our design intent to get to there. I'm very excited about this opportunity, but I am really excited about this opportunity because we've done this. We've already done it, and it was a huge success. It ultimately became a huge compliment to the built environment, and I think the city of Brookhaven is proud of it today. And that's the Roswell Village. I didn't include an aerial of what it formerly was, but this is the intersection of Ashford Dunwoody Road, Johnson Ferry Road. This is about a little more than 2 miles to the perimeter center of Ashford Dunwoody Road. YMCA's here, the Marist School is kind of right there in the floodplain, that's that. So if you're kind of familiar with in-town Atlanta, that's where we are. It was not an old power center. It was post-World War II housing that the DeKalb Housing Authority had taken over and had become a real blight and problem for the surrounding homes, which similarly were built in the late 70s through the early 90s. Roswell Village, Hampton Hall, just some great, solid communities. They're not in an office market. They're not really in a great retail market. They're just in a great, solid housing environment. So we worked through over about a 4 or 5 year period with all these surrounding neighborhood groups to come up with a plan that would allow us to, and we ultimately partnered with the Housing Authority and the HUD, to come up with a plan that would allow us to, not us, a development team, a senior housing deal, a dense multifamily rental project, a government-assisted senior housing deal, and a large townhome community put together by Aspen Woods, and a large retail tract. And this retail tract originally went all the way out to here. And the idea was it was going to be a strip center. It was going to be sort of a smaller grocery anchored strip center. It was almost the same time period with the same vision. And what happened is like we got going on all of this, and the financial downturn occurred. Retail began to know it was evolving, and this went dormant. This entire site went dormant. And we could not get anyone interested in developing it. It was a big clay eyesore. It was the exact opposite of what this community had wanted to see. So we went back and we said, look, what we need to do is limit this space. We need to get it down to what we have here, which is neighborhood nexus. We need to frame this environment so more people will get out and walk. The best way to do that is with large buildings. So we came back in and we actually built an addition to this project. Ultimately, this project was 335 units. We had a small piece of structured parking there, which was shared with the retail. And that unlocked that space. So moving forward, let me just show you some of the things we learned in doing this. There's a better picture, and you can see the retail sitting vacant. That's Primrose, and that's a great story that I'm going to tell here when I get to a picture of that. I mean, this was a high-profile site. That's Peachtree Golf Club, so that's Bobby Jones' home course. After he designed Augusta National, but that's where he played for the weekend before he got ill. Here's what it looks like up close. This is, I'm not suggesting that this building typology is appropriate for here. And it's absolutely inconsistent with the design guidance. But this is 70 units to an acre. You know, everyone talks about density, you don't want density. I will tell you, you do want density. This environment has no negatives, and these buildings really create a unique pedestrian and framing environment. You can see the retail was reduced down to 45,000 square feet. So here's I'm just going to flip through pictures of what it is. So this is a main thoroughfare. You can see the size of the building, but you can see that the building articulation looks like something you would have seen built, you know, at the turn of the century. It's not a flat, long, contemporary line. That building articulation, that's closer pictures in a second. So small things that are just solely meant for the pedestrian. These types of entry gates. These low walls that push you away from the building and push you away from bedroom windows. It tells you as a pedestrian where to walk, where to go. The lighting, the street trees, this is a beautiful boulevard, but I don't have a picture of that. You know, it just, I can't tell you how many people walk this community. When I had the HOA meeting with the towns, I had 4 people come up to me to talk specifically about this, and I did not include this in my case study with them. This is a business meeting, so I brought a case study. With them, I'm not bringing case studies. But they came up and said, man, we know who you are. I had 2 that lived at Brooklyn, 4 that had friends there, 1 that had lived in the town I was behind it, and they all said they walked through here to get to the Irish pub that's right there, the Bat and Ball, and then they staggered back to the town. So it's just a really unique setting in a unique part of the community. Here's more pictures of that same situation. The night shot's dramatic, but it doesn't really articulate for us what it is. But again, same concepts there. This is absolutely our design intent. Now, the interesting thing about the UDC and the way Roswell does things is we haven't really been asked to push forward on our building typology and architecture yet. Because after some, you know, which I appreciate, why waste your time on all of that if you're not going to get zoned? So in Roswell, if you get zoned, then you go to the Architectural Review Board. Now we have been meeting with the Architectural Review Board and been very involved in our site plan, and I think in a very positive way. So what I'm saying to you guys is that is what we're going to build. That's our design intent. Those streetscapes are what we want to do. I don't know if I'll duplicate that, but I might. We need to show some creativity and do something new. This shows the level of scale. That's actually the entrance to our business leasing platform. It's a mix of commercial, it's a mix of residential. It doesn't jump out at you. It's scaled appropriately. You would have no problem working with it at any time of the day or the night and feel comfortable. So that's the front door of the apartment project right here. Here's the interior. Now, I like showing this. It looks really good, but I'm showing it for a very specific reason. I use architecture to chase my consumer. I use interior design to chase my consumer. I don't know many people who just got out of Auburn who are looking at that thinking, this is where I want to live. And I'm happy for them to reach that conclusion. But I do know a lot of people that are 38, 40, 42, who during the week are doing business travel, and all they do is walk into business hotels, and that's what they see, and that's what they're accustomed to, and that's how they feel comfortable, and that's what I want to duplicate. And so the architecture and interior design is a reinforcing proposition for my basic business model. So again, that's what we'll build. It's Brooklyn, and again, I'm just going to show some more pictures of what I think. Another facet of the community room. A different community room. One of the interesting things, even about downsizing baby boomers, is that we have all gotten comfortable using community spaces as ad hoc extensions of our own personal space, which is really weird, but we've all gotten comfortable with it. You can thank Starbucks for it. But even I tell my assistant all the time, like, I get more done sometimes when I don't go to the office and I go to Starbucks. I don't know why that is. We've just all gotten really comfortable with that. So you have to be careful about how you build those spaces and what activities you want to encourage. But you can see, I really want someone to come in here. I don't have just one TV with one big sitting area, but 2 TVs with 2 sitting areas, so I can get different groups in there. This is the pool. Again, I like this for a bunch of different reasons, but and this is Brooklyn. But again, I wanted to show is a lot of people who are not in my business have really strong reactions to density and 4- and 5-story buildings. But what you should have strong reactions are to poorly planned, poorly designed, poorly executed 4- and 5-story buildings. And they do exist. And I have colleagues that build them. But they can be used correctly and effectively to create really, really cool spaces. I mean, that's a pool, that could be a resort somewhere. Again, that's our design intent. Jackie and Alice don't want to hear me say this. I am happy to condition my development to these pictures. I will build to this quality. I will do it because it's the only way to get the rents that I want to get. So I have no problem committing to that.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
That pool is for the residents of that?
This pool's for the residents.
Okay. And the first floor buildings that are surrounding it, are those retail establishments or are they apartments that have a lobby? In terms of going from my apartment, let's say on the 4th floor, I go out to my building and go into the pool, and then it's assumed that I will go back to my apartment to do anything that I would normally do in a private swimming pool. Is that pretty much what I'm seeing?
I think, I would say this. Each of these ground level apartments have direct access to the pool.
Okay, they are apartments and not retail.
Yes, they are not retail. No, that retail would die. That's a very confined space, twice the size of this restaurant. Nobody would even know the retailers were there.
And would there be a lifeguard on duty on the weekends or something like that?
No,
Okay,
no,
so
there's no
there's
lifeguard on
no-
duty. You actually just put your finger on the issue I raised with the townhome community next to us that does not have amenities. And I said, look, I've never lost anyone in a swimming pool, but you can spend 2 seconds on Google and you'll fill every second pool you can find. There are some really heart-wrenching stories. And so I said, we're going to have to work out a complicated insurance arrangement. But this pool, maybe the way to answer what you're asking is, this pool is regulated by the local jurisdiction. In this case, Brookhaven, in our case, it would be Roswell. So there are all kinds of regulations in terms of child safety locks, signage, life-saving equipment, which is, so I'm obviously not taking pictures of that, but it's in there. That govern how you kind of have that pool. And that pool is licensed annually. So there's a health inspector. Again, in this case it would be Cat County, and here in Fulton County, a health inspector comes out and makes sure the pool is being run correctly. And we have to keep records of the water chemical ratios.
And it's clearly, signage clearly indicates that this is private property, this is a private pool.
This does, yes. Again, you can't get into this pool unless you have, I give you an electronic fob. Right, right. Another great question, another issue I raised with the town and community is, I know we can work through it. But the last thing I need is to convince someone that this is a very unique housing experience and then find out that their cousin's brother's, best friend is using this. Because then that ruins my business. And at the end, that's what I'm focused on. This is a typical unit, so remember what I was saying, like these are not the apartments that you moved into when you got out of undergraduate. We are doing our very best to deliver apartment units that look like the housing that you probably left at Brewing. So you can see we've articulated ceilings. One thing I always just hated about apartments is you walk in, it's just a monolithic ceiling. In a house, you have lots of ins and outs. Articulated ceilings, a lot of case molding, unique archways, built-in cabinetry, great kitchens. I don't take pictures of the windows looking back, but our intention here is to build 10-foot ceilings, not even 9-foot ceilings, so 10-foot ceilings. The exterior will be 8 feet windows. So think about your own home. What is the size of the window in your bedroom? Mine's 8 foot. It's pretty spectacular. It's actually hard to duplicate in a large single-family home. So there are other things that I can do that single-family homes can't do. For example, the multifamily industry was the first to get Google Fiber. Why? It's easy to deliver it to us versus to get all the way down to the end of the cul-de-sac wherever you are. So typically, these are sidebar notes, but by the way, if anybody wants to remember me, I'm happy to do that. But sidebar note, you typically can choose between AT&T, Google Fiber, and Comcast in our apartments. I don't make that choice for you. Kitchen at Brooklyn, just I'm happy to have that compete with any single family home. At the end of the day, though, what I really loved about what we achieved at Brooklyn, and I hinted to this a second ago, is I thought we did a very good job, and this was our first time doing this, of integrating different housing types, different people in different parts of their life cycle, and creating really an environment that felt very friendly. Whenever anyone looks at this, they always point out, they're like, well, why the heck did you let the town own guy do a concrete sidewalk versus the paver sidewalk? So this project, when it was in planning stage, the local area was so excited that the Atlanta Path Foundation came to us and they said, we want to run they could not connect it yet. They said, we want to run our bicycle path through your community. We figured it out. The town guys took a hit because that's not the best front door, but that's the Path Foundation path. It now connects all the way out to Chamblee, which is super cool and obviously a long-term goal for every community and sub-community you have. But the point of this picture is this. See all this? No retail. Dead. No takers. Zero interest. Great area. Lots of consumers. Not happening. It's now just started. What happened was the delivery of a well-executed, thought-out set of rooftops. That's all it took. So what did we get? After we did all this, took all this bet, gosh knows we stressed that community because nobody would come in there. But what did we get? We got Marlowe's Tavern. There's my apartment, but that's how close we are. Those folks walk out and just go to dinner and walk out. They walk out, go to the bar, and walk out. It's awesome. So we got Marlowe's to do that. We got Pure Taqueria on the other end. Same thing. Great. These are not stock photos. These are the photos. So there's Pure, and you can see us back here again. And what you can see here is like there's pieces of the retail that still are unbuilt there. I would have never guessed this, and I fought it when it first came in, but once it came in, it was the best thing we ever did. Primrose came to us, and they said, look, we know it's a dense environment. We know you've scaled the buildings a certain way. We really don't want to do a 2-story building. It's way more expensive, but it's the right thing to do in this environment. We want to build a 2-story building and tried their hardest to match all our finishes, but it didn't work out perfectly. But this was the first 2-story Primrose in the southeast. And we all just said, do we really want everyone dropping their kids off and then coming back for their kids? And it turned out to be the best traffic driver you can imagine. The truth is that, most parents, single or couple, they need help with their children. That's just the way our economy works now. And so to have something like that in proximity was a huge benefit. I'm not saying that's coming here. I just thought it was a unique, again, we deliver the rooftops and unique things happen. We got...
So can I ask a question in relationship to that? What percent, your Brookhaven property, what percent are there children, school-age children now in that property?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Because, our schools will be affected by that.
So 335 units with 8.
Current, and how long has the property been up?
2014.
And they're townhouses and?
Look, the children question, I have to be careful here, right, because I'm subject to the federal laws.
Yeah.
But the children question is an interesting question. First of all, nowadays, my demographic doesn't have a child. If you're coming to live in what I just showed you, you typically don't have a child. No, I will have.
Yeah.
No, ever. So I don't have 1,500 square feet of space. I have small spaces. I'm 65 to 70% one bedrooms. So we're not delivering on the edge of economics for families. That housing exists, but it's not mine. Okay, I don't. So usually what we do with a local jurisdiction that has concerns about this is we'll agree not to have 3-bedroom units. So we don't have children play areas. We don't have them dedicated. So contrast that with Centennial. So we don't have them inside the project or outside the project. So if you have a child, look, again, the federal laws protect everybody from a housing perspective, thankfully. But I don't know why you would choose to pay as much money as I charge if you have a child. Unless you want to go to the bar and Marley's.
And let me ask you a question. Obviously, you know.
Let me do this. I got 2 more slides. Okay, you want to come back to kids?
No, I just want to come back to you making such a comparison to the Brookhaven project. And you talked about Steve DeFrancis and the Portland project over there. And they put 30,000 or 20,000 a door in it. We know what his rents are, you can walk it. They're in the low dollar range still. These things are $2 a square foot each. And then you say, this is what I'm going to build. You've got Ohio public teachers going to be your institutional investor. You know, you're going to have people looking at this book, analyzing it, and they're going to sit there and say, can you get $2 here? If you can't get $2 a square foot, you can't build what you build over there.
Well, so
are we going to, I mean, I'm just looking at you, you know the market, you know this, Portland's is the best, that you're competing with, absolute best. You've shopped that, you know what their rent per square foot is, you're going to do an institutional grade investment here. I mean, you know, you see, I mean, we're just wondering, you talk about feasibility, is this really feasible? Can you get those rents?
So,
you know, you're sticking your neck out, I think. I don't know, just defend
no,
yourself.
you don't have to stick in the case for me, but I will say this. If it's not feasible, it's not going to happen. So what the heck?
Yeah, that's right.
So who cares, right? Because when I ask OPERS for $20+ billion, they know how to invest.
Yeah.
So they'll evaluate it. And I also have to ask the bank for 38, 40. So they know what they're doing also. So there is a level of review of that. But I think the better question is this.
We're just wondering whether you can build that same product, because the cost will have to come down a little bit if the rents come down.
So this product does not have structural parking. We're talking about that.
Yeah.
Brooklyn does.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference there. There's almost a 35-cent square foot difference.
Yeah.
So I built this product, Surface Park, on the backside of Sugarloaf Country Club, which is a polite way of saying I built it on Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. Sugarloaf Parkway and Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. It's not a perfectly desirable spot. I filled it up with a it's the exact same proposition here. So here's my question though, and this is relevant feedback. And by the way, I can quickly go back to the slide that says, don't invest any money in this site. I mean, trust me. If that's your goal, let me know. I mean, that's one way to get rid of me. I mean, that's absolutely one way to get rid of me.
Yeah.
So, but here's the question. So everyone knows, look, I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but you know, there's non-East Roswell. Lennar built a project. Look, to say it's a part of Canton Street is charitable.
Yeah.
Okay? It's really a part of a blighted portion of Fraser Street. Okay? It's a huge risk. I looked at the site. I look at the site and I live 7 minutes from the site. I take my kids to Blessed Trinity right by it. I said, no way. No way. Okay. Nobody's here from Lennar, right? Okay. Did their building look anything like what I built? I think it's a step below. Today, that project, which is Surface Park, today, that project is 98% leased, $1.92 rents. Is this location am I missing the point? Is this location that far off that?
Yeah, that's,
Okay. So here's my answer for everyone that's nodding heads. I've been doing it a long time. I am really good at site selection. I am really bad at a lot of things. I'm a terrible husband. I'm a decent dad. But I am good at site selection. I believe in this, and I believe in this community. It's like, y'all can try and dissuade me, and ultimately you get to decide if you want me. But I absolutely believe in this community, and this will be a success, and it will be a credit, and it will unlock Holcomb Bridge the same way we did it at Brookhaven. This final piece, I want to point this out, okay? Because this is, and I'm not promising anything, because this is actually on you, okay? Brookley and the area around Brookley became a pop-up focal point. This is an unplanned farmer's market that occurs in the, I think, 40 parking space parking lot of a Walgreens, bat and ball, and some weird Thai Cambodian fusion restaurant, okay? The community does this. There's a guy who makes tamales that are out of this world. They do it. I love that photo, by the way. I mean, there is no reason this cannot be that. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to build this. Let me tell you what this is going to be in a second. So, the trick to Avalon is it's not as profitable as you think it is. It's because they throw so much money at enticing you to come in there. Okay? That's not the proposition here. I don't want anyone to hear me say that. By the way, I'm also not promising organic grocers and then I'm going to trick you and not do it. I get it. I know every deal in this town, and I know the people who were involved in that one, and that's frustrating because it makes me look bad. This is a little over an acre of green space. I don't even think it needs to be landscaped. If you look what they did in downtown Alpharetta, it smokes Avalon. It smokes Avalon. You know what it's got? It's got a bunch of restaurants and some, kind of cool boutique retail, but I bet they're paying to have that retail in there.
they got a parking garage.
They got 2 parking garages.
Yeah.
So to finish our conversation, city-owned parking garages.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, so take that white. I call it. It's probably an appropriate architecture. I call it that white Nantucket style framed building. So what we've been talking, Jackie and Alice, about here, MDRB, we're doing is a similar white frame building. It'll be enclosed. It can be opened. It'll have a bathroom. It'll have a sink, and you can use it. And we're going to make it available for our community. We'll probably have events there. These folks certainly will have events there. But I can see that being an ad hoc, let's go back to an ad hoc use of personal spaces, an ad hoc gathering place for people. I had one meeting, one stakeholder meeting with a group here at the Taco Mac. It probably would have been a good idea for me to walk it off after the meeting before I left. So I do think that there are these exciting opportunities and I really want to pursue them.
Will this PowerPoint be available for us to download?
Yes. Yeah. I cannot figure out how to do that, but I'll try and figure it out there. Yeah. We have some technological incompetent people.
I apologize for walking in late, but just quickly overview. What you're proposing for East Roswell is going to have the same focus on childless young couples, one bedrooms, is that predominant?
I have 2 primary consumer groups.
Yeah.
I have what I call stabilized millennials. I hate that. It suggests the other ones aren't stabilized. But and downsizing baby boomers. Yeah.
My only concern about the younger ones is that if we become top heavy with stylish, beautiful one-bedroom apartments, my concern is that we are evolving to a bedroom suburb because there's a high transience in people who are unencumbered at that point in their lives with children, so that career can thrive where they live. And one of the hallmarks of moving to Roswell, when we moved here from Houston in 1981, was there was a here, Tokyo here, And to the extent that we may be, that's my question, that we're overemphasizing childless couples at either end of the life cycle, we run the real risk of just turning ourselves into an anonymous bedroom suburb where people enjoy their subdivisions, they enjoy their enclosed communities, but there's really no sense of identity in Roswell.
Yeah,
So
there's-
it's just, that's the context that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I will say that that's a larger kind of demographic policy discussion, and unfortunately, I have volunteered to be on industry-type committees and get exposed to a lot of that. And I would say there's two big threads with what you're saying. The first is I don't know if there's anything to do about it. I mean, I went to a presentation by the guy who runs the MIT Center for Aging or Laboratory for Aging or something, and he pointed out that we're rapidly moving to a situation where the average age for a first child is 35 or above. And now when I say average age, he's picking a very specific average, subgroup, and I can't remember what he said that subgroup was. But it is absolutely true that people are having children much later in life, they're having small families. And I will say also something, and I don't know that this is good or bad, but it's absolutely going to be different. What the baby boomers did and the way they lived their lives, and the number of children they produced, and the way they were involved in their communities, it may be different in the future. I think that like this area has unbelievable recreational facilities. I've seen quite a few chat room notes like, we don't have anything recreational. I was like, I don't know why. My kids are, you got East Roswell, you got Newtown above you. Newtown's technically not in Roswell, but it's only a mile and a half. So there's a lot of family-oriented stuff here. But it is true, and I will say, the other thing that's exciting about it, but scary, is like, it has completely changed downtown Atlanta. I mean, if you had not spent much time in areas of downtown Atlanta that you would have never gone to when you moved here in 81, Cabbagetown, for example, you would be blown away. And that's being driven by people who don't have kids. Now, a lot of them, when they do have kids, they are popping out to take advantage of school systems, et cetera. So it's a bigger, larger question, and I don't know that I'm delivering or making promises on any of that, but I acknowledge it all.
And I'm not telling you to do it, but as an opportunity, as we're trying to also move forward with an east-west connectivity for MARTA or some form of appropriate mass transit, having two millennial twin sons, they are also the group who they want to just park their car and go. So that cut through you're trying to close may be an opportunity to, thinking very far, maybe hopefully not too far into the future, but you could make that some way or other incorporating a transit line. If we get that done, it would be stopping right there. Even though those of us as we're aging out, I'd much rather not have to drive if I want to go over to Kansas Street.
We built a project in
Might be an opportunity.
We built a project in Sandy Springs, essentially across from Chastain Park, and we approached MARTA, and we got it up, and we did it because people were crossing the street in an area where, another thing, if you ever want to get depressed, is read the homicide rate for pedestrians on Roswell Road.
Right.
It's crazy how many people get hit. So we actually approached them and got a bus in there. And it's not a negative because, again, our children don't view. I could, 10 years ago, you'd have never imagined voluntarily putting a MARTA station in front of your community. They don't. But the millennials are an interesting animal when it comes to transportation, right? Because they're all good with that. But then you've got Elon Musk trying to get us all in electric cars, and he absolutely poo-poos mass transit. So it's like they're as schizophrenic as anyone.
I'm just, that could be an interesting, maybe way to incorporate that.
Just as far as your estimated price point for your townhouse, what's the ballpark there, and then the estimated monthly amount for your 1 and 2 bedrooms, just general price structure there, and then with your commercial in the front, you talked about the restaurants, but the general commercial, would that be office condo, retail, what was the cost there?
I mean, we work looking back. So the townhomes are going to be in the low 4s. I think that's what Aaron's been saying. Aaron couldn't be here this morning. I apologize for that. Mine are probably $1.70 rents, and I'll have square footages that range from $700 up to $1,200, so in that range, so let's just say an average range is $1,500–$1,600 a month. So I have to get through the architecture, but right now it feels like 70-30, 70% ones, 30% twos. If it changes, it won't go past 65-35, so I should have said that range. And the commercial already has a mix of what you're saying. I don't think it'd be condo out per se, but North Side has a medical piece in here. Yeah. Well, sorry,
Yeah.
I just insulted anybody.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a fighting word. Yeah. So look. Oh no.
Yeah, that's why the lights just went up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you just did.
There is lemon there, so that's good. There's already a mix of service in here. There's a Palm Beach tan that apparently is just right here. There's a nail salon that somebody. So I think it'll be that type of neighborhood next to. But look, there's two buildings that are in pinpoint spots, and those are just placeholders, right? You got to show square footages. And the square foot out of the UDC, the square footages can move within that range. So that's it. And then in terms of the restaurant, I would like to defer that until we get to the planning commission, because the owner of the shopping center has retained Ackerman. So they've retained Ackerman to do the leasing on that, and they're putting together what they call a vision statement, which I think is a fancy way of saying marketing plan. Taking into account what we're doing, taking some of these same pictures, and also using the case study to go out and generate interest. I have said to the owner, and I have said to Ackerman, it is true that everything unlocks once people know what's framing, once retailers know what's framing behind them, and they put the failed Target Center behind, in the distant past. But what you don't want to do is get all done and then wait for an 8-month marketing. So they're aggressively trying to get out in the market with a vision. I keep skipping these.
Hey, Darian. Three quick questions. One, did you cover the last two slides that you had mentioned with the other guy?
I think I just flipped through them. I had just one, and it was that pop.
Okay. So then the two questions are complementary. Are you going to be soliciting questions from the actual East Roswell Economic Committee, and are you going to solicit questions from everybody in the room?
I can't distinguish, so I'm happy to. Yeah,
Forward of us is the committee. That's the
Yeah,
committee.
no, look, I'm here until y'all want. Well, we need to be sensitive to the.
That's why I brought it up. I know there's a time constraint.
Yeah. I didn't know. I was just curious when I asked at the beginning the percentages.
Do you have a monthly price point for the rental purpose?
Yeah, so we were just saying that. So I would say on average, probably around 1,500 to 1,600. So one bedrooms will be, probably a little over 1,000. Two bedrooms, maybe, depending on how the square footage is worked out, maybe as much as 1,800 square feet.
So a question about the one bedrooms. I'm sorry, were you?
No, go right ahead.
All right, I've got a 42-year-old son who has his kids over on the weekend. Because he doesn't have kids all the time, that demographic that you're talking about, I've never heard of even a single person who doesn't want to have the option of a home office in addition to their bedroom. Now, the zoning for a home office is different from zoning for a bedroom, because a bedroom doesn't have a closet, as I understand it, in most municipalities. But do your one-bedrooms offer the potential for converting a room to either a guest room or a home office, or is it strictly a one-bedroom? And the other issue is, in terms of downsizing, more and more grandparents are being asked to participate in the raising of the children due to divorce or one thing or another. So I'm having a bit of difficulty. Are there studies that you could refer us to that show that a strictly one-bedroom apartment is hotcakes?
So none of those folks would be in a one bedroom. It is, I would say that more than 50%, maybe less than 65% of our 2 bedrooms go to exactly that use.
Right, but the ratios I heard it,
That's what I'm gonna build. That's what I'll build. So I still get more 1-bedroom takers.
really.
Yes, yes.
And then
Now,
you,
our bedrooms, or, we'll go back to your home office real quick.
Right, right.
The distinction you made there is you cannot hold yourself out as being open for business in a residential unit. That the city grounds on that greatly because they don't get respect. But having a study, hobby room, and this is a great question because when I'm finding the downsizing baby boomers is even if they are retired and they have got more volunteer and hobby stuff. So 2 things are going on. I have this weird tension between wanting 3 bedrooms, but jurisdictions not wanting 3 bedrooms. But it's usually grandparents that want to take them. Okay, it's exactly what you said. And by the way, grandparents are helping with everything, like paying for school. It's not just like child rearing, it's like,
well, I'm glad you put it.
Trying to
straight.
raise
I'm glad you put it.
Point of
Because
order.
I was saying, well, I
Why,
was
this lady is a civilian, why is she taking up all your time?
I
Yeah,
have
I'm
no
here
problem.
that has some
I have
questions.
no problem with her taking up all the time, but I'm gonna get to her question. Are we running out of time?
No, we're good.
We got 30 minutes. By the way, look, I have had 2 disappointing interactions in this city. I have had 9 uncharacteristically courteous, thoughtful, engaged interactions. Let's keep this one in that pile. That's totally unnecessary. I'm doing my best to direct this. She was not offended.
Okay, so like I said, I'm on the committee. And first, thank you for trying to invest in our community. I'm a resident and also commercial real estate, and I live commercial. So,
By the way, I come to see you too.
okay, good. The truck stop that the Target Center currently is going to be a welcomed redevelopment. But there are some questions that I'm curious as to when you look at the studies from like 05, I'm sure you've looked at all of them up until 07 to 17, that talks about really needing kind of a community, kind of almost East Roswell city center, if you will. And this is a real opportunity, I feel like, to do that because this is the greatest redevelopment opportunity that we have. In some of the other mixed-use developments that you see that are done in town, in Shanley, Brookhaven, and other places, you have retail on the bottom, apartments on top, see it out. Just some commentary as to why you guys designed it the way you did, and it could be units, it could just very transparently talk us through why you designed it this way versus having the retail on the bottom versus the apartments on top, if you don't mind. And then the other piece is this community gathering space is, I think, a huge potential for creating this environment. We know that 3% of the bids in Roswell are held on East Roswell, everything else is held the other time. So this could be a great opportunity to do that, but I'm curious on the logistics, because it seems like it's more like a community clubhouse, but I would love to know how, like, would the city of Roswell be letting people, like, I would love to know a little more logistics on the plan.
Yeah, so I'll try to work reverse on that one. So what you just said is my fear. I don't want it to be a dead community clubhouse.
Right.
That is a concern, right? I don't want it to be sitting there gathering dust. So the answer to that has to be utilization. If you hold it out to the public to use, it has to be held out to the public for appropriate uses. It's private property, so I can govern that. So we have not advanced to the point like, are we going to discriminate against other Roswell? Or no, I don't. But honestly, I don't think that's the case. And it's not. So it's an acre, and this is going to take me back to kind of your bigger question, which is, what do we have here? So does anybody know how many acres Avalon is? It's almost 90 acres. So how about the avenues up at Brooklyn? It's almost 70 acres. Okay, and that's like a minimum to generate the type of impact and density to be successful. So this is right now. This is I know this better, but this piece is about 22 acres, and it's not even 22 acres that are usable because pretty much all of this is hiding a very sophisticated sub-regional stormwater facility. So it's actually not, as much as I would love to have my hands on the next Avalon or the next Canton Street or whatever it is, I don't think this site has the size or the metrics for it to get there. So that's not our business proposition. I don't think that will be anyone's business proposition. Now, another question you had was about multifamily on top of retail. So in this situation, we have height limitations in the commercial corridor, and so you would end up only having basically 2 levels of units above a concrete podium. Neither the retail that could be expected to go here, right, or the rental rates that I can expect to achieve would pay for that type of building podium typology, unfortunately. See, you have this weird feeding, this self-reinforcing loop is, you need the larger impact, you need to be able to access it because people want to get in and out of it to be impactful. That doesn't exist here, and in order to get the rents to pay for the building typology, you've got to have the impactful. You can't just build the building typology and hope that the impactful will come because developers won't give you the money. So I don't think this location is that. And I don't want anyone to leave here with me having suggested that this is a city center node. If the community could buy this and dedicate it to park, although I keep coming back to, I don't know why the recreational aspect keeps coming up. We had East Roswell, which is,
No, but I think it's more like a gathering space, like having a work, like a true, like people want to come to spend time there, go to the restaurant, maybe come go by ride, they kind of have like more of a environment there. And so that's why I was just curious as to kind of more.
well, I mean, so the most you could do is duplicate this, and you'd struggle to duplicate this even now because you can't put the parking lot up on the corridor. So you have to kind of flip it or ring it, and then, so it's not the size to do that, and it's not, we're not suggesting that it's, let's call that a lifestyle center. In order for lifestyle, you know what, I have a perfect example. How many of y'all have been to the avenues in East Cobb? How many know what anchors and avenues in East Cobb right now? Michael's. It's too small, has no impact, equidistant between the Roswell line and right with St. Anne's is where I am. We never go there. So it's like, we all want that, and if we could assemble something bigger and clean up the traffic picture, maybe. I don't think this is that location, unfortunately. And I don't know that that's, I've really looked around East Roswell. I don't know that it exists in East Roswell. That's a challenge. This area was built out primarily in the late 80s in a car-centric commuter world, baby boomer commuter world. It is really hard to undo all of that. Really hard. So, let me go to you.
Okay, your townhomes, you said were going to be in the 400,000s. Is that low 400,000s or high 400,000s? Number one. You can answer that question.
I said low 400s.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay, now, as I've spoken to this committee, this East Roswell plan that you have, this area here is really the last major area of potential community business development in East Roswell. You've made very clear to Martin's Landing when you were there, and in your other conversations, you're going to, even if you have to legally pursue this, you will get this done. In my estimation, if this gets done, there's going to be no need for this committee any further. Thank you.
Got it. By the way, that keeps coming up. Did I threaten to sue somebody? Because I don't sue people. I'm a lawyer.
That's the
law. Is that the law's way?
Yeah, if you don't get what you want, sue the city, and
Okay.
give you what you want.
Wait, no, it was funny because I've appeared, thanks to somebody with a connection with the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I keep appearing in the Business Chronicle, but nobody from the Business Chronicle is calling me, despite the fact that I know half the stuff. So it's like there's this weird.
WSB television reported that you allegedly said that if you did not get what you want, you would sue.
I've never spoken to WPST.
WSB, Channel 2.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not suing.
Right?
Well, no, it quite clearly can be turned, the mayor and city council can quite clearly turn down the special administrative use permit. So it is zoned, but that, also, my part, that's just there, so I got double different.
Just from the committee, we've seen you do the presentation, actually, each time you get better and better.
This was more in my wheelhouse, but I was like, let me just tell them from a business perspective what I'm
You
thinking.
know, phenomenal in your idea and your feasibility and everything is phenomenal. I think one of the things that the committee and being on this committee to look at is obviously this is one of the possible highest and best use for the site. You know, are there others? And that's what we think about, whether you could be a data center or a movie studio production TV facility or flex office. You know, we're looking at all the other uses, and so we're hearing your idea, and then our committee is gonna comment on it, and we said thank you because you've done a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you very much for those comments. And that, by the way, that's exactly how the majority of my interactions in this city go on. And it's great because I'm almost a citizen, you know, like I said, like I'm the worst kind of citizen. I live on a line and I use all your services.
Yeah,
Thanks. But no, I mean, look, at the end of the day, everyone, you know, there's a vote to be had here. This is the point of this is to have intelligent dialogue. It is not to do what you hear on Fox News or whatever the liberal it is. I don't know what's wrong. So,
Couple question. On the retail side, are you going to own the retail, develop the retail, sell the pads? Is that all part of the state partnership that you've got here? What's your vision for developing this house?
yeah, that's the greatest question in the world. Like a totally punt. So the existing owner will continue to own this portion, and they will lease it and pursue that strategy. They have retained Ackerman, which is a very famous, very good. So the question is more appropriately for them. But it's generally speaking, the zoning will limit them in terms of type. Well, I should say two things. The UDC will limit them in terms of certain building sizes and square footages and parking ratios and things like that. But we will have a fairly complicated property owners association where I don't want them leasing it to another, you know, like I don't want drive-throughs either. So we'll probably have a discussion about whether they can lease it or sell it to a drive-through.
How do they do now, the retail?
Well, the retail has been reduced to primarily service-based retail, and the community is supporting that very nicely. I think these guys in particular, so there's a nail salon, tanning bed, and facility here, a Taco Mat, and we have a dollar back here who has gotten wind of the rezoning and is now suddenly happy to stay back there and doesn't want to be bought out of their lease.
Yeah, it just takes time.
Yeah, just take time, they do.
Yeah. No, everybody's all right. That's the best type of. That's the best type of.
So the one other piece here is not having an office, right? And I understand that constraints on having a commercial building, you're 3.5 miles from 400 and that sort of thing. But the office condos across the street have done well
Yes.
from this site, and office condos are, old Alabama. So there seems to be a market for that. Is there any consideration to bring some type of office condo product to this development?
And the answer is no, but yes. The office condo market is doing very well, and I will tell you more broadly, I've heard you say that it appears that the 10,000 and under square foot tenant space is doing great. Again, and I think it's because my thesis is correct. It's a really strong residential area that wants immediate access to the services that they want, but has no problem getting in the car to go to work, or no problem getting in the car to go to Dick's. Honestly, we got a Dick's in our neighborhood. I hate it. I wish it would. That Kmart was an unbelievable opportunity, redevelopment opportunity. We got a Dick's, and they only took half of that Kmart, so we got this dead thing. But the office condo is the opposite type of use that we're looking for. So an office condo does nothing in terms of activating the service. It just undermines the value of these two housing experiments. They are doing great though, and we do need that space. And I would also say that this project, because of where it is in terms of capital structure, it cannot go to that low density of use. So if you think about what a doctor can pay in rent or to buy its own pad and build its own little shop, it doesn't come close to it. The market is strong though, and for those types of uses, I do agree, and I think it supports my thesis.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. So let's please coordinate getting through this.
Karen, when you get the technology, this PowerPoint into our minutes?
I think somebody was just.
Let me make one more point. There is a lot of work to do in each side of the committee, besides from this very important.
Oh, I know where you're going.
And I think you know that.
400 things.
We have a lot of work to do, so this is not the only issue that we deal with here. Based on the work we've done and the work, the reviews that we've done in the last couple of months, there's a lot on the table. I've lived here for 32 years, and we need some improvement on this east side corridor. I'm just making that point because it's not the only thing we have to do. Okay, this is important.
I'm a bit different.
I know. I'm not going to take that undefended.
And before we all forget, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's been I was just going to ask, because I know a couple of us maybe had a couple of questions that maybe we were just wait to the end. Yeah.
Okay.
We're sitting here? Yeah, I was just, that I thought maybe the committee might like to hear as well.
Yes, okay.
So one of the questions, first off, Karen, I really appreciate you sharing this new plan, because I think the flow is a lot better versus what we were looking at before, which really showed kind of three separate projects that were kind of dropped in one area. And I think it works better. You've got a central space. There's focus. But I was also kind of interested in what you said about the current owner with the retail continuing to own that and maintain it. And one of the concerns that I have with this plan is that even the people that live there, when they walk to these retail establishments as they're laid out today, I think there's still a lot of space between them. And I'm just wondering if there's any influence that you or the committee or others might have to bring either like as those new parcels are built, to get them more connected with the existing parcels. Because see, here's the thing that I face, and I think a lot of people face here in East Roswell. I have kids. Now my kids are going to be probably, by the time this is all finished, too old, and I'll be moving into downsizing, right? My apartment's all done. But I have a lot of friends in Horseshoe Bend that have children. And the thing that I struggle with every day is I have a teenager who doesn't drive, who has nowhere to go. And they want, and he is a consumer. He has his card, his little credit card that he has money on, and he wants to go take his girlfriend or go with his friends, and they want to walk across Holcomb Ridge Road and walk all the way down to the yogurt shop at the Studio Movie Grill from Horseshoe Bend, which is like horrendous for my wife and I to think about. And I think about this project being such a great opportunity for us to have a place, like you were saying, where, like kids, families, whatever, right? I could go to dinner, I could walk a couple of doors down or across the way, get an ice cream, right? I could see, like a small boutique shop or two going in there. Nothing obviously big. So I'm just wondering, how much influence do you think you have with that retail portion because it's great that you want to do this and hopefully you build it and they come, but I'm also thinking like, is there a way that like the additional retail component can come at the same time as well? Like, can you talk a little bit about like what that coordination possibility is or what it could look like? So a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan.
Yeah. We're still very good. Okay.
We're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone has my site plan in brain. So, we're still very good. Okay. So, a lot of, now at this point, I hope everyone First of all, that's almost eerie, and your next volunteer job is on the DRB.
Oh, I've offered to support the city 100 times.
Okay. Our last meeting with the DRB, they raised the question of the building where we are closing the curb cut, turning that on edge, so that then connects with the top of that. And then you could mirror that pattern. It's being looked at. There are, the larger question you have, because what you did and what you said is more what we do at Brooklyn. And again, I'll flip the picture, I'll show you, it's long, with 2 restaurants. And the restaurants have raised pedestrian connections to the lawn. So it's like restaurant, raised pedestrian, customer shop. Perfect. So can that happen here? The challenge is that we close one curb cut to create a little more space. That one central curb cut's going to have to stay, and then so that leads you then to the other angle. So you basically have two pads of retail activity. One is already in that shape. We're trying to get the other one in that shape. You really can't connect them across that one piece. And I know I don't have it up, but that's the answer. And you have to kind of work within the parking. So the best opportunity for exactly that is on the table, and that's moving one out. It'll present some real issues because we've lingered around long enough and had enough meetings with DRB that we're now in the process. So we have to be mindful of like what now is an administrative site plan change, or what mayor and city council can approve, or what we even want to, if there's even a way to submit a different site plan to mayor and city council. But I've offered to sit down with you, and I think we should.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, just one other follow-up question that I know I've heard from a few people from some online stuff. It looks like the number of units has increased since your initial plan. Can you maybe just comment like what drove you to increase the density when I know in the public meeting we had back in March, there was already some concerns about there being too much density from the community. So how is that being addressed?
Well, there's 2 answers to that. The buildings themselves have been changed and moved around, but the density of the buildings themselves, the impact of the buildings has not changed. What happened is that in order to address some concerns on the back side of the property where that high retaining wall is, it was just as cost effective to go ahead and drop a terrace level unit there. So you actually have a 3-4 split building on that back side, and it added the units to it. So you do have more density in terms of units, the buildings themselves in terms of like linear square footage.
Okay, thank you.
Trent, my question is focused to you on the last meeting. My concern at the last meeting dealt with the outreach subject.
Right.
In which...
we didn't finish the subject though.
Yeah, but there were some critical issues in my mind, okay? It was brought up that a survey was going to be conducted to residential and commercial entities, and the city refuses to provide you staff to conduct those services. I'm very concerned about the city's reluctance. This committee, they committed initially, they were obligated to do it.
I don't know if I would call it confused right now. I think we're still working with those arrangements. We haven't yet, although the work plan has defined outreach efforts, initiatives. We're still developing those outreaches. Bruce is heading it up and Andy's heading that up. But we have a resource issue in terms of a couple of issues. One is to conduct or to help us design and conduct the surveys that we're going to come up with, and we're still drafting. And the second is to analyze an existing survey that's on our site, the 2017 survey. Have you read that?
Oh, yes, I did, but I was
It's
also
incredible.
about the fact that this information was referring back to 2005.
Well, that's a different subject there. The 2005 study is a different subject there. You know that, although I think it's a good study. We're looking at a lot of components of that. That's still in process in terms of what we're going to do with that. That was never finalized, it was drafted. It was left in draft form. I like it, my personal preference, and a lot of my committee members like it. We're not sure exactly how far to take that, though we are looking at the lifestyle issue and the Centennial Node, which I talked to a couple about, but we haven't gotten to the actionable site for processing that review. That's going to be the topic of our next couple of meetings, or one of the topics, in addition to the public outreach. We didn't get a chance to really focus on that at our last meeting, even though the first half of our meeting was really, really valuable, and so we were rushed into that second half. We have yet to deal with that. We're not letting go of the public outreach issues. We're looking at HOAs, we're looking at residential, and we're looking at businesses, or in terms of getting information that's important to us and to establish the legitimacy of the decision process that we get to, the recommendations we get to. We want as much of that feedback and input as we possibly get. That's yet to be formally defined. I can't say that the city's refused to do that. That's not the point. There's a resource issue which we're still communicating on to get help with. That's not a closed door. All right, so we rushed to an end at our last meeting. It may have sounded that way. Absolutely, it isn't. We're trying to work all those details out. We also have volunteers that we might be able to fall back on. So there's a lot of things we can do to make this kind of feedback from the community valuable to our process. So I just want to clarify that. I thank you for raising that, because that is a significant part of what we define as our needs. So, but don't feel that it's a closed door. We're still in the process.
I'm glad to hear that.
But me too. That's my position. That's my committee's position, and we just haven't put that to bed yet.
I know that was your position.
Yeah. It's all it's in the work plan, and it's a very important thing that we need to do. It's just that we're surveying. We have a history of surveying, and not a lot happens.
The question is, I think, just to add to what Trent's saying, is if we're going to take the time to survey, what are we getting unique from the data we already have? And we have a lot of data saying the same thing from 05, 12, and 17.
And we've had that
And so we
discussion.
need to make sure that if we're taking the time and months to do a survey, that we're getting a different result and something unique than what we already have. Otherwise, we're taking time away from action, which is the title of this committee, to actually get actionable title things done for the city. So we want to make sure that if we take the time to do the survey, that it's different and unique than what we already have.
I understand what you're saying, but at that last meeting, I got the distinct impression that y'all were being manipulated into a vision to challenge the UDC. Now, this community, it's on the stream,
All right,
it's on the video.
like I said, we were rushed. I don't mean to imply that.
And no, you didn't imply it. It was implied to you by city staff, which I felt was politicizing the entity. Okay, now, this entire city went through a massive UDC study and developed these codes and these zonings with input from citizens. And so when I hear the possibility of litigation to challenge the UDC zoning, I'm saying it's like you're trying to throw out years of study that were conducted and approved by citizens of this city. So I just want you to know my position.
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. That's my philosophy. Use what we have, what we can reliably fall back on, what is still current today. A lot of the studies that you see on our site are still current, even though they were done a long time ago, in my opinion. All right. So bear with us. We've only had 2 full meetings under our own governance. so I think we've come a long ways, and we have a long ways to go. But we're being constructive. I don't think we're being manipulated or in it at all, and we don't have anything that says, no, we can't do this. All right? So,
Trent, my name is, just want to thank you for this meeting. I think it was great.
Oh,
Really
thank
great
you.
opportunity to hear what's going on, and for the opportunity to hear what's going on, and really kind of get it all out there, and have a meeting in East Roswell. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you, and I thank you all for coming. We got to cut this down so Tim can open his business.
Keep him in business.
Otherwise,
Roswell Village.
thank you